Hello, everyone. I hope this is working. Can you hear me well? Let me know. Good morning from Beirut. Yes, it's turtles all the way down. Thank you, Susan, for helping me out with this again. Guys, I know I look as if I just got out of bed, but that's not the case. I've been up for a while. I just dropped the kids at school, but for some reason, I don't look too fresh today. I'm sorry for that. Um, yeah, so I hope you guys, I don't know if you guys saw the conversation I had on Capturing Christianity's channel with Cameron himself, Joe Schmidt from Majesty of Reason, and Alex O'Connor, Cosmic Skeptic. Yeah, I was super happy that, this first encounter with Alex actually happened. Well, hello to India. Cosmic Lifeist. Awesome. So yeah, I was super happy that this conversation actually happened, or this first encounter actually happened with Alex. So I was super excited about that. I thought I was not so, I didn't feel super happy about how it went, mainly because I thought I had a hard time getting the ideas across, or also I felt like I had to tiptoe around context, in the sense that this was not a proper, time and space to talk about Alex's moral philosophy, which is, the topic of most of my videos that I put out in response to his stuff. Although that's the kind of stuff I would really like to talk about with him at some point. So I was trying to, pick up on some of the issues, and they also naturally came up. But at the same time, I felt, well, given the context and the topic of the live stream on Cameron's platform, again, it just wasn't the right time to delve deep into it. So, and that led to a bit of frustration on my part, about what I expressed and how deep I could go and all of that stuff. So in the end, I felt like maybe I should have left it all together, or just dive right into it. So yeah, that's about what happened this week. That was on Monday. And yes, hello Ruth to Canada. I actually have an aunt in Canada, but I've never been to Canada myself. And we have, there are actually two people from the Bible Study for Skeptics that we've been leading for a couple of years in Beirut that have emigrated to Canada. Yeah. Now, I don't know if you guys want to put questions into the comment section. I'll try to pick them up. I didn't get as many suggestions or comments or questions for this live stream as I did for the last one. So feel free to put out anything you wanted to ask me, and I'll try to answer. Yeah, I did get one issue that came up from Vinny Gididi, I think. I never know how to pronounce the name. And he basically asked me about, my stance on creationism, old earth, young earth, and all these kind of things, in response to the series he's been watching on intelligent design and evolution. Well, okay, I think I've mentioned this at the previous live stream, but I'll say it again because I think it's an important topic. So I believe, I'll talk about Ukraine later as well. I believe in an old earth. I'm not a young earth guy. I believe in an old earth, as the scientific consensus would tell us. And now the difference, I'm not a creationist, and I think here, in the following sense, and I think here it's very important to actually understand what the difference between creationism and intelligent design is in the technical terms. Because generally, when people hear intelligent design, they think creationism. Well, people who just believe the Bible and try to disguise it as science, or try to embellish it with scientific terms. But really, on the spectrum of how people go about the question of origins, that is the origin of the universe, the origin of life itself and the origin of species. On that spectrum, you have creationism on one end, which basically is committed. So creationism is the commitment to interpret or to go about the question of origins, starting from the biblical data. Okay, that's what, in a nutshell, what creationism is all about. It's a commitment to start with the biblical data, like with the data you have specifically from Genesis 1, and from there to develop an answer or to give an answer to the question of origins. Whereas, and that's creationism. And you can be a creationist and believe in an old earth, okay? Or you can be a creationist and believe in a young earth. Thank you, Fortitude, for the super chat. Thank you so much. Wow, that's very kind. So that's creationism. Now, intelligent design is the commitment to answer the question of origins, starting with the scientific data and not with the biblical data, okay? And that's the key difference, as far as I am concerned. That's the key difference between creationism and intelligent design. Intelligent design is the commitment to answer the question of origins based on the scientific data, or based on the scientific data first. Now, that doesn't mean that intelligent design has, at some point, can be used, or not can be used, but has, that you can reconcile the account in Genesis with intelligent design. But it is to say, intelligent design does mean that you develop an answer to the question of origins based on the scientific data, and not with a theological commitment or with giving priority to the Genesis account. Okay, and that's why you find in people in the intelligent design camp who are atheists, who are agnostics, who are Buddhists, who are wherever they stand. Okay. Whereas creationism is an exclusively Christian stance, okay? Because again, it starts with a prior commitment to Genesis, not a prior commitment, but with Genesis 1 as the basis of how one wants to go about answering the question of origins, okay? Cool, I hope this helps. Now, again, thanks so much, Fortitude, for that super chat. That's very, very kind. TikTok, Elijah Rogers. Yes, I have a TikTok account. You'll find me, I think it's either called This is Deflate or Deflate. Now, I have to say that I haven't been consistently uploading to TikTok, and mainly I'm just in terms of capacity, I'm hardly catching up with everything that I want to do on YouTube, and I am mostly passionate about YouTube. And even though, I've now piled up quite a few, I don't know, maybe a dozen shorts or so, and they would be easily suitable for TikTok, but I haven't uploaded them there yet, mainly because I haven't figured out the proper plan and schedule for how to do it on TikTok. The thing is, on YouTube, it's very easy to kind of schedule your uploads. I finish a video, I upload it and schedule it for it to be published 3 days later or so. Whereas on TikTok, I haven't figured out how to do that. And I thought that instead of just putting everything out there on YouTube without figuring out, when the best times are to publish and how people actually react to what kind of content, I'd rather just pile up my shorts on my laptop, and then once I actually figure out TikTok, I'll go about it there as well. But yes, so I have a bunch of videos on TikTok. Again, you can look me up under Deflate or This is Deflate. I also have an Instagram account. But again, at the moment, I'm still trying to get this YouTube thing up and running. And probably once I hit 20K subscribers, maybe that's a good, commitment. Once I hit 20K subscribers, I'll try to get things up and running on TikTok and Instagram properly. Okay. Ukraine, what's the coverage like over there? What do I think will happen? Well, I have quite a bunch of friends in the Ukraine, in Kiev and Sumy. Sumy is a city at the eastern border, so at the border with Russia. Like the organization I work with, Steiger International, we have quite a very thriving ministry in in the Ukraine. And so these guys have all evacuated. They've all either gone to Poland, where we have a lot of other teams, or to Germany. Some of them have stayed back. We actually have, our teams have a community house there where they, usually have events. Where people share living together or share life together, and they do events and Bible studies and all sorts of things there. And one of the guys has stayed back to actually host people who've been displaced or who've fled the fighting. As far as coverage is concerned, I'm not, maybe that, so you won't be too impressed with that, but I'm not too much of a person who follows the news consistently and regularly. So what I do, I do follow the stuff that's happening in the Ukraine, but that's actually, it's been a long time since I was, regularly since I've regularly checked out the news. But I basically follow BBC's coverage on the Ukrainian situation. And I'm no expert. I don't know what's going to happen. I think it does seem to me that the sanctions are hitting Russia really hard, and I guess they are not feeling the impact of everything that's coming yet, because once you're cut off from SWIFT and once your banks or your assets are frozen, well, I think there's not just the short-term impact, but the long-term impact. And I just wonder how this is going to play out in the long run, the longer this war drags on. And just yesterday night before I went to bed, again, as I checked BBC, now I found out that the cats, I don't know, the organization or the International Association of Cat Breeders, they've sanctioned the Russian branch or the Russian club of cat breeders. So apparently now you can't find or buy any Russian-bred cats anymore. So I think it's been nice to see the pretty unified and strong response on the international platform towards Putin and Russia's invasion. So that's my 2 cents on the situation. Again, I'm not an expert, but we get coverage on this stuff over here. Greetings back to Indonesia, Annie. And let me pick up Elijah Rogers' question. Have I seen Inspiring Philosophy's Genesis series? I have seen I'm not sure if I've seen the Genesis series. And I've seen some of the videos he's done on evolution. I know that he is a theistic evolutionist. The thing is, I know Michael Jones quite a bit, actually. We've partnered last year on a couple of things. I contacted him the beginning of last year, so the beginning of 2021, and I basically just said, hey, Michael, I really like your stuff, and I've been following you for years, and I basically offered to him just any sort of help as a way of connecting, me connecting with him, me as a new YouTuber or YouTube apologist with someone who's really had an impact on the scene for years. And so he said, well, yeah, I would actually like your help with some editing. And so I edited 2 videos for him in the Bible contradiction series. One was the supposed Bible contradiction series, the supposed Bible contradiction of whether there were angels or men at the tomb on the day of the resurrection. I edited that for him. I did the graphics and stuff for him. And another one, I think, on the women maybe. Now, and then, so in return, he said he would share my videos or a bunch of my videos on YouTube posts. And then when it came to my first intelligent design video, which I launched in summer last year, he said, well, he can't share that one because he's a theistic evolutionist. And we had a bit of a conversation around it, and I watched his videos on the topic. Now, I was actually thinking whether it would be useful to have a discussion with him on, again, the question of intelligent design and theistic evolution. I feel that I think part of his motivation for theistic evolution, and I might be wrong, but that's the impression I got. And I'm not, again, well, take this with a grain of salt, please. I'm not saying that this is really how it is, but it seemed to me that I think in his past, he may have had some really bad experiences with Christian fundamentalists, hammering home that evolution is from the devil and really bad and cannot be true, and that sort of stuff. And it seemed to me that some of his, to a certain extent, and again, this he would probably, definitely he would have much more to say on the topic, but I got the impression that maybe to a certain extent his stance on theistic evolution might be partly, or was maybe initiated at least, as a reaction against some of the fundamentalist teaching he's gone through. Obviously he has thought through the topic a lot. I know that he's been to conferences where intelligent design was discussed, and he's looked into the topic deeply. So he definitely takes, he knows the science, and he knows the questions related to philosophy of science, for sure. But yeah, so that's kind of the impression I got. And the thing is that I know that some of you guys or some of the viewers, they actually, or quite a few of you guys, they reached out to me saying, well, you should check out Inspiring Philosophy stuff on intelligent design and evolution. And so yeah, maybe I've had it at the back of my mind to maybe reach out to him once, whether we want to have just a friendly conversation, among two Christians, and we're both not experts, we're both not scientists, but to have a friendly conversation about, again, the whole discussion surrounding theistic evolution and intelligent design. Zach, thank you so much. Thanks for joining. Thanks for the support and prayer. Yeah, really appreciate that. Sherbil, if I know Saint Sherbil, I know. So someone from Lebanon is asking about my thoughts on Saint Sherbil. So Saint Sherbil is an important saint for Christians around here. Well, here's my thoughts. Well, the topic of saints is obviously very big, and we just had it raised very recently in one of our Bible studies, actually. And so my stance is this. I believe, the New Testament teaching on what it means to be a saint, or what it means to be holy, is that once you receive Christ, is like you are given Christ's holiness. You are given Christ's righteousness in return for him taking your sin and your unrighteousness. And Paul, the Apostle Paul, very clearly teaches that, believers are saints. He addresses the Corinthians in his letter as the saints. And he doesn't make any distinction between, well, some of you guys are saints and some of you are not. So I believe that the Bible teaches that whoever is in Christ is a saint, or is made holy by virtue of having been forgiven and having been given Christ's holiness. Now, does that mean that there aren't people who I look up to, or who I think the church should look up to? No, I do believe that there are both people in the past, in the history of the church, like in the far past, or also in the recent past, who are, worthy or worthwhile to be looked up to as an inspiration and as like a source of encouragement or teaching, in terms of not just kind of the content of what they passed on and taught, but also in terms of their lifestyle and dedication to the Lord. Definitely, I have people in my life who, for me, N.T. Wright is a person I feel like, wow, that, his way of going about Scripture, that's something I need to learn from him. So there are people who are definitely, or who God has been using in a very particular and special way, but that doesn't mean that I would put them on on the level of them being some sort of special saint. Again, because I'm committed to the Bible's teaching, well, which, or you may say it's, that's a very Protestant view, that we're all saints, or we're all made holy, and there is no distinction among us. So that's my 2 cents on this. Now, next. Okay, Cosmic Lifeist. I would be highly grateful to know your thoughts on my question pertaining to negative utilitarianism that Alex does seem to broadly agree with. Yes, let me tell you, I've seen your question under the video. I think you put it out there 2 days ago. I had a couple of thoughts like right away in response to it, but I wasn't quite sure whether I got you correctly. But let me, instead of me giving you like a half-baked answer now, I'll get back to you on the comment section, okay? Because first it seemed to me that I think that you misunderstood what Alex's stance or particular stance, utilitarian stance is. But again, I've marked your comment, and I'm going to get back to you. I just haven't figured out the ins and outs of what is at stake here. Okay. What are my thoughts on, guys? By the way, I said this before. I'm trying to go about the question in order, but I might not always be successful. Okay, greetings from New Zealand. Greetings back to New Zealand. Talking about Daniel Cloud from New Zealand. I have, I don't know if you, just randomly, I had a conversation with Arjuna who is based in New Zealand. He's a Kiwi. If you haven't seen it yet, that's on the channel Theology Unleashed. Arjuna is Hare Krishna. And he reached out to me actually a couple of months ago and asked whether I would have a conversation with him on Christian exclusivism, the claim that Christ only saves. And he reached out to me in response to actually me having William Lane Craig on my channel. That was like a year ago, where we talked about the question of whether Jesus only saves. And what was I going to say? Sorry. So he reached out to me, and then it took quite a while for us to actually set something up. And but now, I think 10 days ago or a week ago, we talked on whether it is it makes sense to claim that Christ only saves, given that God is all loving. And we had a conversation about that. It was a long conversation, 2 hours. You can check that out. So that's my connection to New Zealand. I also know a couple of guys in New Zealand. I've never been to New Zealand. It's one of the places I would love to visit once, actually. Okay, then next. My thoughts on presuppositionalism. Again, based on that or related to that, I was on Revealed Apologetics, I think. Elijah, no, I can't remember his name. Who is like a non or an not anti-presuppositionalist, but I had a conversation with him on his channel a couple of weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, which were really good. I mean, I see the value in presuppositionalism for sure. I mean, a lot of the stuff that I do, both on like offline in discussions with atheists or with skeptics, is like presuppositionalist in style. I guess my not a lot of the videos, but you will find traces, clear traces of presuppositionalism in my work on YouTube. So I don't think there are two deep conceptual problems or philosophical problems with, or indeed biblical problems with presuppositionalism that it should be discarded. However, obviously, since I'm presuppositionalist in a lot of my approaches. However, I do value again the commitment to, or the commitment of those, and the inspiration and challenge of those who say, well, you really wanna you have to start with the word first. I guess I just value the spirit there of people who call us to a commitment to the word. But so that's my 2 cents on the topic. Having said that, I've never been super like too much vested in the conversation, whether about presuppositionalism and whether that's a justifiable stance as a Christian. It's just something that has never or not yet maybe caught my attention to the extent that I felt like I should really dig deep into this. So yeah, let me know your thoughts about this. What is my favorite kind of music? Well, at the moment we're listening in my house. We're listening to a lot of the. I don't know if you guys have seen Encanto, the new Disney, or I don't know if that's actually new, but the Disney movie. My kids loved it, and they loved the music. They learned some of the lyrics, and in turn, so a lot of what we listen to at the moment is Encanto, soundtrack. Other than that, it depends on the mood. I love classical music, I love jazz music, and I love electric rock stuff. Sometimes I listen to Muse. I don't know if that's something that people still listen to, Muse or Radiohead. And other than that, I listen to a lot of Shane and Shane for worship music or for my prayer times and times of reading scripture. Yeah, that's about my music taste. Briefly about power, like the politics in Lebanon, asked by Any. Well, yes. So the agreement in Lebanon, it's like they call it a sectarian system. It's the political cake is divided between the different religious groups. The presidency belongs to a Maronite Christian. The head of parliament and again, just the key roles are divided between Shiite Muslims, Sunni Muslims, Druze, Maronite Christians, and so on and so forth. And so that's kind of, that you could call it, that's kind of political dogma. And so they kind of base that, the whole system is based on a census that happened in the 1960s, where they counted population, and then they said, well, okay, these guys should get that much of a share, and these guys should get that big of a share, and so on and so forth. And that's how politics work. And it's very messy. It's no fun. I mean, because every sect or every religious group has their guaranteed share of the cake. That's just part of the root of the problem of corruption here. And I mean, it's very complex, and we don't need to get into that in detail, but it's just super frustrating. Thanks, Zach. Appreciate you too. And my intelligent designing video is coming out soon. Actually, picking up on that, I don't know if you remember, but around half a year ago, I shared on a post that the Discovery Institute has adopted my series. They got in touch with me saying that they would like to have my videos. Well, basically, the way this happened, actually, is that I reached out to them after I published my first video. I said, hey, guys, I'm doing this series, which is basically a summary of Stephen Meyer's New York Times best-selling book, Darwin's Stout. Would you be happy to share it? I thought, it's a win-win situation. Here is, I get a bit of exposure, and these guys have material on their platform, or at least can link material on their platform. And then they actually reached out to me saying, well, we really liked your stuff. Would it be possible for us to actually have your videos and publish them on our own platform? I said, well, yeah, sure. And now this has been taking a bit of time just to get, things at the back end running and lined up. But soon, it seems like probably in like 3 weeks from now, they're gonna put out my first video in the series on their own platform. So if you follow the Discovery Institute, you'll soon kind of see me pop up there, or my videos pop up there. Yeah. What else? Yeah, never settle about creationism, old Earth, young Earth, and stuff. I answered that at the very beginning of the live stream. So if you want, just go back once this is over. And next one. Let me just. Elijah Rogers, will I make any videos on Roman Catholicism? I don't have it on my. I don't have anything planned so far. I also, yeah, I honestly, I don't have anything planned so far. What is in the pipeline at the moment are 2 videos, I think they're going to be pretty simple and very basic on issues regarding the reliability of the Gospels. I have that in the pipeline. I've also got something about like a response to Russell Brand, who is a person I find very fascinating. I'm trying to make a response to one of his videos, and so yeah, that's some of the stuff I'm working on. I honestly don't have anything on Roman Catholicism right now. I think there are people who are who are probably much more equipped to do that. I must say I love talking about Catholicism. I love some of the stuff that Trent Horn has on his channel. I think he's a very deep thinker, so I appreciate him a lot. Elijah, well, next, Seymour Rice is on house poetry. Our treehouse. Yeah, well, yeah, thanks for that. Well, basically, again, I don't know if you guys have seen the post. When COVID hit Lebanon, which is exactly 2 years ago, when the first lockdown kicked in, like complete lockdown kicked in, we basically transformed a pile of trash just right next to the apartment block we're living in. There was like just this, like a dump site for like a building site around the corner. Well, again, like they basically dumped their stuff and trash and some of the like material they were still able to use just right next to our apartment block. And during lockdowns, what we did as a family, we started to remove all that trash and then started to kind of gradually transform the whole area. It's just like a sandy space and a bit of trees and green, and it's on a hill, like there's a bit of a plateau on the hillside. We started to transform it into a playground. So again, there's like zip lines and swings and like Tarzan ropes where you can swing on the hill and stuff. So yeah, and this has become kind of a hub for the neighborhood. There's a lot of people who now pass by here with their kids to play around. And sometimes, especially on Friday evening, because the school where our kids go to, it's a fairly big-sized school. I mean, I think for what I think is a big-sized school, there are probably like 2,000 students. Is around the corner. So often on Friday nights, Friday evening, a lot of kids come here to play. And now we're doing this Treehouse party in 2 weeks or so. So that's like an update on what's happening on the Treehouse side of things over here. Let me pick up another question I saw here by Eli. Oh, my testimony. Yeah, that's a good thing to talk about for you guys to get to know a bit about the backstory. So I was raised in a home with believing parents. In fact, my dad was like a lay preacher in an Anabaptist church. And I guess one of the things, we are 5 kids. I'm the middle one of 5 kids. And one of the if there is one thing, or the first thing I can remember from my, from my childhood or from me being raised in the faith, is that I realized pretty quickly, well, that's, I need to make a personal decision on this matter, whether I want to believe in Christianity or not. I realized that, I think that was probably the first thing I realized as a kid. But also for quite a long time, I felt, well, I can't make that decision. My 2 older brothers, they, became committed to the faith pretty early on, around the age of 10 probably. Whereas for me, when I entered teenage years, I became very passionate, and that's kind of part of the story that created a link with Cosmic Skeptics' work. I became very passionate about animal rights and about environmental stuff. Like extremely passionate that like I would go to activist groups and demonstrations sometimes and be part of those, you know, discussion circles and communities where these things are discussed. Later on I got into like more the social justice stuff, but I really started off as an environmentalist, not activist, but kind of with at least with the aspirations to become an activist later or so. And so part of what kept me from the faith or from personally committing to the faith was that I had the very strong impression that the church doesn't care about these things, and especially the church I knew from my childhood and my family. And so I felt, well, if given that this is like something like the key thing that drives me, and the key thing that I'm so passionate about, and given that the church doesn't seem to care about this stuff, well, what do I have to do with the stuff, you know, with Christianity? So that kept me for a long time. It just created this mental distance, if you want, and between me and the faith. Even though, I mean, I liked my Christian friends. I thought they were cool, they were loving, and they're nice people. But then what happened is at around the age of 20, I thought, well, you know, I should, for some reason I thought, well, I just need to pick up a Bible and actually read the Bible for myself and check out Christianity in a more serious, just, you know, let's see what's in there. So basically what I did, I remember just reading through the New Testament, epistles, gospels, just by myself without, you know, any guidance, just for being in my room. And I basically realized, well, or not I realized, I came to a conviction, well, this, you know, I need Christ. I need this. That's what it just dawned on me that unless I embrace Christ, I'm lost. And I didn't know, I was still aware that, well, somehow I have to figure out how I reconcile all this stuff, or again, the impression I got from the church about not caring so much about the things that I was caring about. I have to reconcile that. Well, I have to work on that. Like, how am I just going to throw out what, you know, the stuff I've cared for so far? And so once I committed to following Jesus, I was basically set on a journey to figure out, well, how does Christianity really relate to, again, social justice, the environment, or care for the environment, and all of that. And so that, you know, this question didn't just get resolved, you know, out of the blue because I made a commitment to following Jesus. And that was then quite a journey. But yeah, so that's how things happened. And yeah, I think that's probably enough. What else? What's my best Christian dating advice, Matthew? Okay, that's the first time I think I've ever been asked this question. Here's one advice, and I don't think if this is the best advice, but it's the first advice that comes to my mind. I think what is really helpful is for you to sit down and to really think through, well, what do I expect or want from, how do I imagine my wife or my relationship with my wife or with my future wife to be like? What are the things that are important to me? What are the things that I would like, that I feel like they definitely need to be there? You know, I don't know, if you're super passionate about hiking, you know, some people say, well, I want to share my most important hobby with my partner. And this is not wrong. It's not, you know, it's not right. I think there is no dogma about it. I think, you know, for some people, the matter is, if this is important for you, for example, to be able to share the hobby you're most passionate about, to share that with your wife or with your partner, then, well, yeah, you know, put this down and look for something, look for a person accordingly. You know, maybe you say, well, the question of, well, do you want to have kids? This is something to think through. You know, how if you want to build a family later on, and maybe you have special ideas of how family life should look like, then put this down, think this through, and then, well, this kind of gives you a kind of funnel or a filter for what you want to look out for. Yeah, and it helps to write this stuff down, I think. And I mean, this, I don't know if this sounds creepy or so, but I think it helps for you to get clarity on, well, what am I actually looking for? Instead of you just, going out there and trying to find someone, and then once you actually get to know someone, you realize, well, I really don't like that kind of thing, where, so this, I think this might just be a bit more complicated, and you saying, well, these are the things I'm really looking for. So let me look for a person who matches my ideas, or more or less at least. Again, I'm not sure if this is the best advice I have to give, but I think it's at least that's one advice I have to offer, and I hope it makes sense. Let's read about parenting. So, parenting books. I'm going to be a new dad later this year. Well, congratulations, first of all, Elijah. Any parenting books? No, I'd have to think about. I don't actually have. I mean, especially for like toddlers or newborn kids, I haven't read that many books. My wife studied in the social sciences, so she had quite a bit of an awareness of, well, what it means to, well, just the psychology of kids and the development of kids. Yeah, I would advise you. There are some really good channels. So kind of she brought quite a bit of, at least, theoretical knowledge that was helpful to be aware of. She brought that to the table. So we've done more reading. The reading on parenting I've done is more like relates to, once kids move out of the toddler phase. So again, like school kids or kindergarten age, school age. There are some really good parenting and Christian parenting channels out there on YouTube, actually, and they're worthwhile following. I can't remember any of the names because I don't follow them consistently, but every now and then I check things out. So I would advise you to look out for these as well. Do you have any advice for a young man moving out for the first time? Well, it's been a long time since I moved out. Actually, in my case, because I married pretty young, I was 24 when I got married, I basically moved out of my house, and I moved in with Denise, my wife, right away. The first household I had to run was the household I shared with Denise, my wife. So other than that, well, I don't know if I have any advice on that. Again, I think, it's one of the questions you wanna figure out as well, and that's something kind of you I think constantly should revisit. Well, how do I handle my finances? What do I like? How do I live out the way I handle my finances and the way I spend my money in a way that my conscience feels at peace regarding the responsibility I have as a follower of Jesus to be responsible. To make wise use of the resources I've been given. And I believe, well, and this doesn't just pertain to the question of moving out, and it's a far bigger question than that. But I do think that once you move out, and you have to handle your, you have to organize your finances more consciously. I think you have to start wrestling with the question of, well, what does it mean to, and I believe the gospel calls us to have, a simple lifestyle. Now, what does simple mean? I think to a certain, it means different things in different context. But I think the calling nevertheless is, or the call nevertheless is that we are, we look out for others and are like in the way we spend our money, and again we live simply when it comes to our own, just to our own. Well, the way the way we spend our money for our own sake. So that's maybe, I think that's kind of a big question to start thinking through when it comes to moving out. The Rouge Sage, thank you so much for your super sticker. And yeah, what else? Fortunate talisman. How are the other persons of the Trinity begotten without being contingent? I'm not sure if I understand the question. I mean, you know, the Son is eternally begotten. I mean, this is the begotten language, or the like spirating language. The Spirit is, or the Father or and the Son, depending if you follow the Orthodox or the Western tradition. Like they spirate the Spirit. Again, the Son is begotten by the Father. I mean, this is language that captures the fact that there is an eternal relationship between the three eternal persons of the Trinity. But I don't think, and I'm not sure if I got the question right, but I don't think that the language as such has anything can be used to make any judgment about contingency or necessity of the three persons. The Trinity holds, you know, that again God is one in being, one in nature, existing as three persons, eternally so. And again, there is the relationship between the Father and the Son is not the same relationship as the one between the Spirit and the Father. But again, I think we shouldn't get confused about, again, the language of begotten being applied there, because that's all that is to say, is that there is the relationship between the Father and the Son is different from the relationship between the Father and the Spirit. But the three persons, they all have existed eternally. Yeah, so that's how I would answer that. Again, I hope this makes sense. Would I invite guest speakers on my channel in the future, the Rouge Sage? Here's the thing. Yes, I would love that. So here's my problem. The internet in Lebanon is very weak, and I can't. The internet doesn't allow me to stream with a second person on my channel, because that means my internet like my Wi-Fi or my line has to take in the data I get from, again, the person on the other end, and it has to stream out both, you know, what it gets from my camera and my audio and what it gets from the other end, and it can't handle it. In fact, I've had problems even pre-recording things. I wanted to record an interview with Sean McDowell 2 months ago, and it just didn't work because the internet couldn't handle the data from Sean's end. And so it ended up, like, Sean ended up all pixelated. I mean, not all pixelated, but just not, the resolution was bad and stuff. And so I had to, it didn't work. So I would actually love to have people on, but I at the moment I can't handle it simply for technical reasons. And so what I've done in the past, for example, when I had Apostate Prophet on for the first time, I did it. Again, it was actually a live. It was a live. We streamed it live, our interview, which was, it's by the way, it's a nice conversation I had with Apostate Prophet. If you like him or if you follow him a bit, I recommend you watch the conversation I had with him about Jesus and the Bible and Christianity. You'll find it on the channel. So I streamed that live, but at the time I was in Switzerland. We were back in Switzerland, and so there the internet doesn't cause any issues. The same thing I had, I think my first interview with William Lane Craig was recorded in Switzerland, whereas here I'm just bound by the internet. So I've actually again, when I'm on Cameron's channel, like on Monday or on other days, like that's not a problem because I just, Cameron is handling all the streaming on his end, whereas I just, I speak on the camera and through the mic as I do now. But yeah, that's a bit of a frustration. I can't, I really can't do live interviews, unfortunately. Yeah. What do I think of the social Trinitarian model? Well, I'd be interested to hear, what that specifically means. Yeah, I mean, Brando, if you want, if you're really interested to get my thoughts on that, I would be interested to hear, what the concept actually entails. So if you want, I mean, I can't answer this question right now because I'm not quite sure what we're talking about. So if you want, you can shoot me an email. If it's, if you want a proper answer to this address. There you go. Then book material recommended for Christian Apologetics weekly Bible study with the youth from the church. Jorge. Well, I usually recommend, I have 3 standard books I recommend, like right off the bat, to people who want to get involved in apologetics. Now, I'm not sure if this is going to be helpful for a weekly Bible study, but first of all, I think when it comes to the problem of evil, I think a very good book is Clay Jones' Why Does God Allow Suffering? And I think it's the best treatment of the topic for Christians, because it doesn't just help you to answer or to go through the problem of evil, but it's very encouraging, a very inspiring read, and very, very educational. I mean, I think Clay has done like an excellent job in breaking down very heavy and big theological concepts, very important concepts for a Christian view and outlook on life. He's done a great job in breaking this down into very digestible, very easily relatable and accessible portions and terms. So it's not just a very good book on, in terms of apologetics when it comes to the problem of evil, but it's a very good book just for Christian formation, I believe, actually. So that's one of the top books I recommend, Why Does God Allow Suffering by Clay Jones. And I think this book could actually be read together as a group, chapter by chapter. The chapters are like very good, very reasonably sized portions. I could definitely imagine this working for a group setting. Another book I recommend is, I recommend John Lennox on Science and Christianity, or Science and Faith. Now there are I enjoyed his book, God's Undertaker, which has, I think the subtitle is Has Science Buried God? Now I've heard that he's put out another book, because he's received feedback that it's too technical. God's Undertaker is a bit too technical, even though it's intended for a wide readership. And so he's put out a second book which breaks down God's Undertaker, into into simpler terms or simpler portions. I haven't read that second book, but I myself enjoyed God's Undertaker. It does get technical at times, but I think it tackles the key issues related to philosophy of science and science and Christianity. It tackles those topics very very easily and very in a very helpful manner. So that's related to Science and Faith, John Lennox. And then third, a book I often recommend is God a Moral Monster by Paul Copan, for Christians to get into this stuff. And again, this might be super helpful for a Bible study or for a Christian youth group, because Is God a Moral Monster basically picks up the challenging passages in the Old Testament, both challenging narratives challenging stories. For example, Abraham offering Isaac, Genesis 22, as well as picking up challenging legislation, Leviticus, sacrifice or food laws, slavery, and all of this stuff. So that's a book I recommend. And again, I recommend it to people who want to, or to youth groups who want to get into apologetics, not just because it helps them to deal with the challenges pertaining to apologetics or the challenges pertaining to the questions that non-Christians raise. I'm sorry, but it also, again, it teaches Christians theology, or it teaches Christians how to read the Bible. And I think there's like a double win there in terms of being equipped for tough conversations or for challenging conversations with skeptics, and in being taught biblical exposition and how to read the Bible and even theological concepts. So yeah, these three books, Is God a Moral Monster by Paul Copan, God's Undertaker by John Lennox, and Why Does God Allow Suffering by Clay Johns. Paul Copan has, well, just on a side note, Paul Copan has two other good books with very, very small chapters. One of them is called True for Me But Not for You, and the other book is called That's Just Your Interpretation. And there he picks up a lot of the objections you constantly hear, or you regularly hear, both on the internet and offline. Well, that's true for you, but it's not true for me. Or, truth is relative, morality is relative, and all that sort of stuff. And in these two books I just mentioned, Paul Copan goes through them in a very, in very small portions, in portions that I think easily translate to how an actual conversation about these topics actually unfolds in real life. And so in this sense, it could be a good conversation, not just conversation starter, but ground or foundation for going through issues together as a group. Okay, so what else do we have? Yeah, that was the Bible study. A book that I found. Oh yeah, thanks DigiGamer for your contribution there. Conditional, Susan, what are my thoughts on conditional immortality? Can you let me know the specifics or more detail? Conditional immortality in the sense that, let me know specifically what you want me to comment on, and what. Are you saying that just let me know. I'd be interested to hear what specifically you want me to comment on. Exactly, yes, thanks, Jorge, that these are the three key books I'd recommend. Also, Jorge, if you want, shoot me an email as well. I have a list, I have like a PDF I've put together that I sometimes hand out to people, where I've just listed some of the books. It's a whole list of like 25 books that are helpful for apologetics. Also some of it relates to Islam and stuff. Yeah. Let me check if I've missed anything. Hey guys, let me know. Oh, Canadian Catholic, I missed your question. Do you think Christian apologists should talk about Jesus more than academic philosophy? Wow, that's a very good question. In the end, as an apologist or in apologetics, you really want to point people to Jesus for sure. So that's the goal. In the end, when you come alongside people and you reach out, or you do evangelism, or again, you just walk your Christian walk, part of your goal is to point people to Christ. That's definitely the ultimate goal. Now, I do believe that sometimes you can't. You can't kind of. How do you call that? You may not be able to, to pick up like a conversation directly about Christ from the very start. I think with a lot of, in many cases, what a person needs to hear first, or what a person needs, is simply like the realization or the experience of, well, this Christian dude here or this Christian girl here, well, she or he actually thinks through things deeply. I think in a certain sense, a lot of the skepticism that people have is birthed from the fact that a lot of, like most or maybe all of the experiences they've had so far with Christians is that they felt like, well, these guys, they don't really wrestle with those hard questions, but they just get back to me saying that, it's all about faith and just believing in God. Because I do believe that, that's a problem we have in the church. We don't teach our people to think through these things for themselves, as well as for the sake of answering the questions of those who don't yet believe. And so I think to a certain extent, to take someone along on a journey towards Christ, the very first step may be for you just to show that you are interested and passionate and have the capacity to think through challenging questions, and questions that are tough, or that look like, well, they're a problem for a person of faith. Again, the problem of evil or whatever, morality, slavery in the Bible and whatnot. So, I've had, let me give you a personal example. I once attended a discussion circle of an atheist club, and then after the event, we went out for dinner all together. And so basically, or for a snack or something. And I was basically sitting next to a guy. I met him for the first time. I think he was there for the first time. And we started talking about morality. And he said, well, morality cannot be objective. Something, again, and he brought up something that you constantly hear. He said, well, 400 years ago, slavery was okay. Today, it's not okay anymore. So who are you, to say that morality is objective? And I simply got back to him saying, well, like, first of all, do you think that slavery was actually okay for slaves 400 years ago? Did they think it was okay? And this question just stopped him in his tracks. He said, wow, I've never thought about this. That's a very reasonable question to ask. And then we just had a very short conversation about morality and stuff. We didn't go deep into it, but it was enough for him to say, well, he said, well, you have a Bible study, right? Well, I'm going to join you guys next time. And he was a very aggressive, like a bitter kind of atheist. And he showed up at our Bible study next week, and he joined and said, well, guys, I had this conversation with Lucas the other day after our discussion at the Atheist Club. And he asked me this really good question, which made me think. So I thought I better join you guys to have some more, fruitful conversations. So that's what I'm saying here. Is I think for a lot of people, actually being able to even start the journey towards Christ, or to even start thinking about Christ, what they need to experience is that someone is able to take their questions. And that doesn't mean that you have to know all the answers, but it means that you show that you're sincere about these issues. Now, am I saying that we should just be, good, kind of apt philosophically and handle questions without ever talking about Christ? No, definitely not. I would want to point to Christ as much as I can. I'm simply saying that some people, when you start your journey with them, you may not be able to, directly have a conversation about the cross and why they need Jesus. But later on, definitely, I think pretty soon, when you start talking about, again, issues, morality, moral philosophy, even science, I think pretty soon you'll be able to say, well, by actually having God in the picture, and not just God, but having Jesus Christ in the picture, like the person of Jesus, in the historical Jesus in the picture, why this helps you, or helps anyone for that matter, answer the questions that are being raised. So yeah, I think it's a case-by-case kind of thing. it always depends where the person is coming from. And again, the only thing I want to put out there is, so two things. Again, you want to point to Christ as much as you can, I mean, because that's the goal. But in order for you to be able to do that, you may have to start like at a different place and lead the person on so that they can actually grasp and understand and relate to Christ and to why you are committed to Christ as part of your worldview, or as the central piece of your worldview. In order for them to appreciate that, you may have to start just somewhere else first. Let me see if Suzanne. Okay, yeah, sure. Suzanne, okay, are people destroyed in Gehenna after the judgment if they are unbelievers? Eternal life only promised to those in Christ Jesus. Okay, got you. Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought you were hinting at. I just wanted to make sure again. We're basically talking about annihilationism, right? Well, Brando, yes, you're hinting at that too. So it's only the saved are given life eternal, whereas the damned or the people in hell are actually, they stop existing. Again, they're annihilated. So my thoughts on that. I think it's a very difficult position to maintain biblically. I don't see the biblical data giving support to the idea that people, stop existing at some point. I don't think you can make that case. Having said that, biblically, I know that it's somehow attractive because it relieves you from the challenge of having to defend or having to, speak to the objection of people being eternally tortured in hell. But again, I think it's very difficult to maintain the case biblically speaking. And by the way, speaking about that, I'll have a video coming out in probably 3 weeks where I respond to rationality rules and his take on hell. Well, basically, I don't know, just to give you a bit of context, and then I'll answer Suzanne's question or go into it in more detail. I don't know if you've seen that, but around a year ago, Cameron Bertuzzi had William Lane Craig on his channel to talk about a clip by Carlin, the guy who does comedy, the comedian, Carlin, I can't remember his family name, like where basically he makes a parody of hell or of God's judgment. And then, so Cameron and William Lane Craig talked through that, and the Rationality Rules responded to it. And basically Rationality Rules' response was, he brought up all the issues that people usually bring up when it comes to hell. Well, why would God torture me eternally just because I don't believe in him? And given that he hasn't even given me enough evidence and all of that sort of stuff, I thought it was a great opportunity to actually pick up again on some of the most often heard objections towards the doctrine of hell. So that's just on a side note. That video should come out in a few. So again, going back to annihilationism and conditional mortality or conditional immortality. Again, first of all, I think you cannot maintain the case biblically. Having said that, I found N.T. Wright's view on the matter very compelling or very interesting. He says, people are not annihilated. People continue to exist. However, because they exist in a state of being detached from God's presence, or at least from God's manifested presence, they're also detached from obviously everything that God is by his very nature. That is, they're detached, or they're separated from all goodness, from all beauty, from all love, from all compassion. And N.T. Wright says, well, these are the very things that a human being needs to exist as a human being, in this age and in the age to come. You need God's light and God's love and God's life for you to be sustained as a human being. and people in hell are going to be cut off from that. So that means, and then he says, well, that means that they won't have what they need to continue existing as human beings. So he says, well, they will continue to exist, but they're going to be like they're going to deintegrate, so to speak, as human beings, so that they're kind of not recognizable anymore as human beings. They're so like their state is so miserable because they've been cut off from the life, the source of life, God himself, that they can't be sustained as human beings. So they continue to exist, but somehow unrecognizable as human beings because of the misery, due to the misery that follows from being cut off from God, who is the source of life. That's a view that I found like very interesting. It seems to be somehow like a middle path between annihilationism, which teaches that people cease to exist, and the traditional view that says, well, yeah, no, sure, people continue to exist, and there is no reason to suppose that anything is going to change. So these are my 2 cents. Yes, George Carlin, exactly. A clip by George Carlin is what Cameron and William Lane Craig talked about, and Rationality Rules picked up on. I think I'm an atheist and why people need God. Well, okay, let me see whether, sorry, just trying to catch up with the comments coming in here. Thank you, Callum. May God be with you too. Why is apologetics not a mainstream topic? Well, I think that the short answer to that would be that I think people enjoy entertainment more than they enjoy, thinking deeply about stuff. So, I mean, both inside the church and outside the church. It takes a bit of, it takes brain power to delve into this stuff, and not everyone is up for that. I mean, people enjoy watching movies or Mr. Beast on YouTube more than they enjoy watching William Lane Craig or, I don't know, Sean Carroll for that matter. So I think that's part of it. It's just well, having said that, I really appreciate Jordan Peterson's contribution in this regard, because I feel like, well, he's really drawn out people to start, thinking about more deeply about important questions in life. So yeah, I thought that's been a very helpful contribution on a very large scale, culturally speaking, that Jordan Peterson's work has brought to the table. Yep. So I was talking about George Carlin, Ola Oluwa, thanks. Always love to hear from you. Have a blessed day as well. What's my biggest proof for God's existence? Marco Fischer. Well, I mean, I guess the first question, well, I'd have to ask back is, what do you mean by proof? What kind of proof are you looking for? I mean, all in all, God's existence, or arguing for God's existence, or offering proof for God's existence, is a matter of looking at the entirety of reality and all its aspects, be that science or, again, the moral aspect of reality, like history, looking into the person of Jesus of Nazareth. And yeah, so I guess in this sense I'm not so much bent on offering one big proof for God. I think it's a cumulative case that needs to be made. And I think, well, that's the issue of having a worldview. We're born into this life, we bump into the fact that we can do science, we can make sense of the world and put things into numbers and stuff, we bump into the fact that we care about things like justice, and we do feel like certain things are wrong and certain things are not supposed to happen, whereas other things are supposed to happen. You do bump into, Western civilization, which has been built largely on principles that you find in the New Testament, and that's something that, even secular historians, Tom Holland is big on that, would argue for, that, the values that have built the society we live in are ultimately Christian values. You bump into that, and I think at some point you bump into the problem of evil. Again, you bump into the issue that people suffer, and you have to make sense of that. And I believe that the biggest proof for God's existence is the fact that the divine mind, or God as an entity, makes most sense, has most explanatory power when you take the data all together. Whereas, I would just pick this one issue of the problem of evil, and I don't want to delve too deeply into that, given that we're on a simple live stream here. But if obviously as a Christian, you have to offer a theodicy, you have to make a case for God in the face of evil. I do think that's a problem the Christian has to contend with. However, if you don't believe in God, and if you believe that we came about, by chance, and that all there is are the forces of nature that have built the world we live in, you can't even, if you want to be consistent, you can't even talk about the problem of evil. You can't, and that, I think, is just very hard to live with practically. I don't think anyone can live with denying the problem of evil, but it is the stance that you're kind of forced to take if you believe in a materialist or materialistic universe. And so again, I believe God makes the most sense, or positing the divine mind makes most sense of reality. And in fact, I really like what David Berlinski says about this, who's not a Christian, by the way. He's an agnostic. He says, in one of his books, he says, again, atheists are quick to point out that, no one can describe God in a test tube. You really can't empirically access God, and that's a problem in terms of even making a case for God. He says, that's really not a reasonable way to go about it. He says, because even the sciences, they consistently or constantly posit entities that no one has access to. I mean, talk about the whole realm of quantum physics, quantas, neutrinos, and all of these things. These are entities that scientists posit to make sense of phenomena they observe. But the entities themselves cannot be accessed. They cannot be empirically studied or grasped. No one has ever seen a neutrino, no one. And yet these are entities that are suggested to exist because they make sense of the phenomena that are being observed. And in the same way, I think that's how making a case or offering proof for God works, is you look at the phenomena. Again, there's a whole range of phenomena that we encounter as we go through life. Again, the fact that we can do science, the fact that we care about moral issues, the fact that we raise the question of evil, and all of that stuff. And if you want to make sense of that, you have to offer a hypothesis, and belief in God is very analogous to, again, in a certain way, to positing the existence of things like neutrinos. You may not be able to access God empirically, by going to a lab or something, but he's an entity suggested to make sense of the phenomena that are being observed in their entirety. Okay, I'll take one more question because this has been going. We've already hit more than an hour, right? Let me see. Maybe two questions. Did the 1/3 of the fallen angels become the Hindu gods? I've never thought about that. I've really never thought about that. In the end, I've studied Hinduism a bit, and I've actually once had a live stream with guys from India, and they raised a couple of questions related to Hinduism. The question is, are the Hindu gods, do they relate to entities, like spiritual entities that actually exist? That would be, something like demonic powers, or are they illusions? And I think, again, depending on where a Hindu, like a Hindu individual, there are thousands of gods, and I guess, different gods that are being worshipped for different things, or different gods that are being referred to for different things. I can certainly imagine that, like the Hindu gods, as they are being worshipped and called upon, like relate to, again, evil powers in the heavenly realms. But so in this sense, you can, I think, I've never thought about it, but you could create a link and say, well, the fallen angels, there is a relationship between that and the Hindu gods that are being worshipped and that have, may have an impact in people's lives. So that's my 2 cents on this. So let me take up the last question. I know, guys, I haven't picked up everything, but the last question on Pascal's wager. I have never used the Pascal's. To be honest, I personally have never used the Pascal's wager in any conversation, I think. And I remember I studied it. I've studied it during my times at Biola, and I remember coming away from my studies feeling like Pascal's wager is, it's good to think through it, but it's, for some reason, I always felt, well, this may not be persuasive for a person in real life, because I think, and recently actually this came up on Monday when we talked on Cameron's channel. Alex mentioned Pascal's wager, and he said, well, ultimately, I just want to know what's true. Or he phrased it somewhere along these lines. He said, I just want to know what's true, and no matter whether it's comfortable, whether truth is comfortable or uncomfortable, ultimately, I want to know what's true. And I think this is the key thing that keeps people from finding Pascal's wager compelling. They feel like, well, yeah, sure, the argument may make sense, but ultimately, what Pascal's wager exposes is the fact that, and this may be the key weakness of Pascal's wager, is that people will not jump on things just because they have something to gain from it, but they want to jump on something because it's true. And so that's where I think to a certain extent Pascal's wager it actually helps a person to get clarity on, well, yes, I don't just want to find or jump on something or believe in something because I have just the most possible benefit, but ultimately I'm committed to jumping on what is true. And so in this sense, I think this was helpful to get crystallized through Pascal's wager, but I don't think that Pascal's wager as such will make a person say, well, I believe that, or I want to embrace Christianity, because it's not as such an argument for its truth. That's how at least people perceive it. So yeah, these are my 2 cents on that. Again, I know that Liz Jackson, who has done her PhD on Pascal's wager, I think she would, I don't know, she would probably grill me for what I just said, and but again, it's just and I'm talking here very much from practical experience. I've personally never used it, or I've used it very cautiously, and the signs or the feedback I got in just real life conversations is like, well, there's probably not too much use in writing Pascal's wager, as in a conversation to get to a point. Yeah. So yeah, I think I'm gonna call it a day, well, a night for you guys over in the State, and I'm gonna go about my day. So let me just say, because I talked about inspiring philosophy, I just talked about Liz Jackson. I appreciate both of these guys a lot, and I just want, I don't want kind of to do injustice to them by putting things in their mouth that they may not have said. I'm just want to make clear that these are the impressions I got. Again, I appreciate both of them very much, and their content and their the stuff they put out there. So just to make sure, I didn't want to kind of do any injustice to any of the persons I've mentioned. Okay, thank you guys for being here with me and for keeping the conversation going. Thanks for all your support and for checking out my stuff. I look forward to doing this again. The plan is every first Friday of the month at this time, and we'll just be talking about things that pop up in the live stream or that you post or you want to ask. Okay? Have a good day, guys, or have a good night. Love you all, and God bless you. Bye-bye.